Welcome to Monologues by Hassie, where I'm going to be dropping unsolicited brain dumps from the depths of my grey matter. I'll talk about life, money, society, and self-development, plus whatever else lies up there, whilst hopefully not getting cancelled in the process. Last month, I was in a town called Ipoh, meeting some friends and enjoying some of the Ramadan festivities out there. And there was one point at night where we'd bought a bunch of desserts from local places, bought some teas, and we were looking for a place to sit down. And we saw a table with some lights on outside a convenience store, and there was already another couple sitting there, and so we assumed that we could sit there and have our meal. And so we're there, drinking tea, eating our food, literally playing card games. And everything seems fine. There's other people here. It seems like it's the month of Ramadan. People are hanging out late. This is a normal place to be hanging out. And there comes a point where I want some more hot water to refill my tea. So I go into the convenience store and ask the man if I can go buy some tea. And he responds to me in a very agitated way. He's saying that I'm meant to be closed, but yeah, sure, I can sell you your hot water. So I buy some hot water from the man. And then he lets me know, I was meant to close the store. And he's trying to be nice, but he's also you can tell he's a bit pissed off that he's like, I meant to close the store, but you guys are out there. So there's this young couple who was there, and they're the reasons we came over. And then me and my group of friends. And I realized that this guy was meant to close his store, and he was literally keeping it open because there was a few groups of people sitting outside on the tables with the lights on. And I promptly went outside after I got the hot water and told my friends, hey, we should go because this guy needs to leave. And I had so much pity and also empathy for this man because he wanted to say no. He wanted to tell us that we all had to leave so he could go home and go to sleep. But because he was unable to come outside and just communicate, to let people know that, hey, I'm actually closing, I need you to vacate so I can close up my store and maybe pack these tables away, none of us knew that. This was all inside his head. It was internal. And his unwillingness and inability to say no at the end of the day was very detrimental to him. And I have great pity for that situation. I also have empathy because there have been many times where I have been unable to say no, and I think a big part of this comes from maybe the way I grew up and that I felt the need to people please a lot. And it is a very damaging thing to do. And there have been many times where I have been unable to say no. I am slowly getting better at this. And I've definitely been more clear with my boundaries, what I'm willing to tolerate and what I won't tolerate. But there have been so many times in my own life where I have not said no, and it's been detrimental not just to me, but also to the person who I should have been saying no to. Because if they've asked me for something and they assume that I'm happy to do it, but I'm really not, and as a result I become resentful, then if they plan on having any sort of long-term relationship with me, and vice versa, then that is damaged by the fact that one of us, me, because I was unable to say no, has developed resentment towards them. Now, I have gone through and done all that type of emotional and mental work of kind of getting rid of that resentment. And a big part of that is through doing lots of meditation. But it is nevertheless a behavior that I do need to remind myself to correct. And sometimes, even now, I still find myself in really benign, arbitrary situations where I'm like, yeah, you should have just said no. And so let me give you a few examples. I remember there was one individual, and not a bad person, arguably somebody trying to kind of fix their life, but they had a lot of problems and they dealt with them in very problematic ways. They wanted to do kind of weekly mentoring calls with me. And that makes sense. They kind of, I was a person who was in their sphere, who they at least had some sort of admiration for, but it was a bit weird because I know there was also a lot of envy and there was a lot of negative feelings, but they're like, we should latch onto this person. And they were like, can we do a weekly mentoring call? And they put calendar invites and put stuff in my calendar. And I just could not say no to this person. And really, I should have just said no. But I remember being in a state where at that time in my life, not only, even if I did have the time, I wouldn't want to be in a weekly mentoring call with this particular individual. It was just not something that I wanted to do. Remember, they're not paying me for this. I wasn't interested in doing free therapy for this person and listening to them rant about all these random things, which quite frankly, I simply did not care about. But at the time, I just also genuinely did not have the capacity. And I was already burning out from trying to do work, trying to study, trying to deal with my own issues in my own life. And I could not handle these issues with this person. But I didn't say no. And so there were some times where I remember being really tired, coming home from work late at night on the train, you'd get a call. Sometimes I'd take a call, and sometimes I just want to put the phone down, but I didn't. And I don't know why I put myself through that, because I realized maybe I thought it's actually going to be easier to put up with this than to say no. And there were other times eventually where I just started ignoring the calls because I became so resentful as soon as I saw that person's name pop up. And I'm like, this person wants my time. They want to take control of a good chunk of my time. And I simply don't have the capacity to give it to this person. I would then ignore calls. So very passively, I was saying no. And eventually, of course, I did have to say no. And I let that person eventually know that this isn't going to work. And I canceled the meetings because they put meetings in my calendar. But it was one of these things where, I should have said no in the first place. Now, obviously, I am very fortunate to have realized this and to be reflecting on this. But there have been other times where this has also happened. I remember there was a time at work where I had been asked and happily took up the task of running a course for some of our staff members. And I already knew the people who I had to teach. There was a handful, maybe 3 or 4 people, and I was preparing a very interactive course to just teach these 3 or 4 people. That is all I was focusing on. The way I was doing it was not in a very scalable way. I wasn't delivering a PowerPoint. There were actually physical materials involved. So I knew who my audience was. I knew how large my audience was. And I had tailored the training I developed to that audience. And I remember in the lead up towards that, I had another member who wasn't really associated with the course that I was teaching. They just happened to be higher up in the kind of totem pole than me, but in a very different department. And I remember there was one day where they sent a message and they said, these people are joining. And there was no, can these people join? There was no, please, there was no thank yous. It was just, this person is joining. And then I said, okay. And I didn't say no that first day. And then on the second day, more people were added. And then on the last day, another person was added, like literally the day before. And I remember kind of bottling up this anger at every time this happened. Because there wasn't even the, Hassie, is this okay if I kind of increase the work you need to do at a moment's notice? I simply did not say no, and I remember getting really pissed about this. And eventually, I did say no in the chat. The very second time it happened, I said, no, more people cannot join. You can't just keep adding more people to this training session because it is not, I have not developed it to run it with a group of 8 or 10 people. It has been designed for 4 people who are from a specific department in the company. So it doesn't even make sense to have all these other people. And I said no then, but I had already built up the resentment because I didn't say no the first time. And so it's not a good thing to hold on to. And I remember there being something really stupid, and this was actually recent. I had a beggar come to me, and I was tired. I had done a whole day of travel. I was kind of sitting in a public transport area, and a man came to me, and he was speaking English, and I always know this is a bad sign. If somebody speaks English to me in Asia and they're speaking half-decent English, and they strike up a conversation with me, it's generally not a good thing. He tells me this sob story, and he says, he's an older man, so he's like, if you can help uncle, that'd be really good. I need some medicine for this and that. And rather than saying no, I opened my wallet and I just gave him the smallest bill I had, literally to get rid of him. But here's the thing. And, he kind of spoke to me and he said, thank you so much. As soon as he got his money, he left. And so I knew that was a very insincere interaction. And whilst part of me admires the hustle, and I hope that I never have to be in that situation where I have to make other people feel that uncomfortable to kind of get by and make money, on my part, I actually felt worse by giving that person money, because I do give money to beggars from time to time. But I only like to do so when it is 100% of my own volition. And I think in that situation, I simply did not say no, and I gave him what he wanted, simply because I was tired, I was exhausted, and I knew he was going to go away. And rather than go through the slight discomfort of saying no and walking away, saying, sorry, uncle, I can't help you out today. Because realistically, I can't help everyone out in the world who asks for money. That is not a sustainable thing. And because of that, I actually felt worse than if I had said no. And here's the thing. There have been many times, many instances, especially recently, where I have been saying no to people. And what I often find is when you do say no to people, And when you do draw your boundaries and you do say, this is what I can commit to, or hey, I'm not going to do everything you say because you have a low credit score with me. You know, the last time we set up a meeting, you not only did not rock up, but you didn't even tell me anything afterwards. And I've been saying no to these people. And one thing I say now is I don't even say I'm too busy. It's not a time thing. Somebody said, hey, can we do a 1-hour call later this month? And I said, hey, I'm choosing not to do that because this is my number one priority. I'm launching something. So I'm no longer, even when I say no, I feel like I'm saying no in a better way. I'm saying no, not because I don't have time, not because I'm tired, because eventually I'll stop being tired. Eventually, the current work I have will go down. But now I'm saying no because I'm saying that's just not my priority, at least for now. And sometimes you can push things back in an even better way. You can say no in a better way. And sometimes it's not a straight out no, it's a not now. And you're saying not now because this is my number one priority. And so I've literally said that to somebody recently, saying that my number one priority is this new product I'm launching. And therefore, I'm not going to make myself available. So you don't even need to ask me. And I think people respect this clarity. They actually enjoy that more than rather you saying. And it's not enjoy. Enjoy is the wrong word. But there is respect because it helps them be clear. If somebody gives me a direct no as well, that is a very positive, beneficial thing because it saves a lot of my own time. And I spoke about this in the previous episode about getting rejected, where you're the one going out to the world and asking for things. But to the counterpoint to that, it is important that we learn to say no to things that we genuinely will never have the time for. So it's a hard no permanently, or something we simply do not have the time for right now because of our circumstances. And when we do say no to other people, and when we are explicit about it, I actually wholeheartedly believe that people will come to respect you more. And more importantly, you will come to respect yourself. Because when I have said no to people and when I have done it explicitly, I feel good because it is more painful than saying yes. But then the pain ends where when I analyze the situations where I have said yes to something and I'm not happy about having said yes to it, whilst the pain in the immediate moment was significantly less, now that pain is prolonged. It is prolonged until you get the guts to say no properly. So my prompt to those of you listening to this today is, are you good at saying no? If you are, that is absolutely wonderful because keep doing it. Because I know that I do not resent people who say no to me because that is great kindness. I know it's not something negative and it is a very good thing to give people that clarity and to be very honest. And by saying no more often, people then come to value when you do say yes. And that is very important. And so my prompt is, think about where in your life are you having trouble saying no to things? It could be boundaries in your relationships. It could be boundaries at work. It could be, in my case, it could be people who ask you for money every day to work. You know, it could be so many different things that you are not saying no to right now, but you know deep down that you want to say no to these things. So go ahead and learn to say no. It's absolutely okay because no one is entitled to anything of yours and vice versa. And I'm not entitled to anybody else's time and energy. And saying no just allows you to focus on the things that are very important. So I'm going to end this episode there. Those of you listening to this, I wish you great success on all your endeavors. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.